same-sex marriage licenses, and she cited her First Amendment religious liberty in her defense. She says, I'm a religious person. I'm not going to participate in the handing out of these documents. Not only was she called on the carpet, she's now sitting in jail. They've now jailed her for contempt of court for refusal to hand out these same-sex marriage licenses. Now, this brings up so many different issues. It really does. And all the various candidates have spoken out about it. There are people like Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee who stand with her Foursquare, Rand Paul as well. There are people like Lindsey Graham and Jeb Bush and Donald Trump, all of whom have said they don't stand with Kim Davis. There are a couple of legal issues that we need to get out of the way first. First of all, your First Amendment right to religious liberty does not mean that you get to not do your job. So if your job description is that you have to do things, or not handing out concealed carry licenses, which have been mandated by a federal court, none of them are going to jail, right? So the point is that when you have a selective use of the law to throw people in jail, that's what troubles me. If she wants to go to jail, by the way, I'm morally with her, okay? On a moral level, I'm with her in the same way that the question becomes, Martin Luther King, right, participated in civil disobedience, went to jail. Should he have gone to jail? The answer is yes, actually, because that was actually his goal, right? He wanted to go to jail.
To have the laws changed.
Right. When Rosa Parks decided to violate the law, the reason that she violated the law was specifically in order to create the moral opprobrium for the law that would lead to the law being overturned. The point of civil disobedience is that you go to jail, right? So the idea that she's in jail and she shouldn't be in jail, it's not true. She should be in jail. However, that's more of an indictment of the system than it is of Kim Davis, and it's an indictment of the tyranny of the system, which selectively puts people in jail. I mean, nothing is more nauseating. Like, Ted Cruz is wrong on the Constitution there, and so is Mike Huckabee. But that's nothing compared to the White House coming out and saying everybody is subject to the law. The White House coming out and saying everybody is subject to the law, while President Obama sits there and says that he has the selective power to not deport anyone that he pleases.
Also, remember DOMA?
The Attorney General of the state of California.
I thought the law was wrong, so he says I'm not going to support DOMA, even though it was passed overwhelmingly by Congress.
Right, so civil disobedience doesn't result in jail if you're on the left. Civil disobedience results in jail if you're on the right, and that's what's truly scary. I'm not so worried that the government is going to come and arrest me as a private citizen for being a religious person based on this. I'm more worried that they're going to come and arrest me based on what they're doing to that baker up in Oregon, or the flower shop owner up in Washington, or the photographer in New Mexico, where they're private people who say, I don't want to participate in this particular voluntary act, and the government is finding them and in some cases threatening to jail them. That frightens me more than this particular case does. But what this case does shine a spotlight on, and what people should be worried about, is the fact that we now live in a country that does not have rule of law. There is no rule of law. There is a rule of people. And those people sort of get to decide who goes to jail and who doesn't. Anthony can name standard all the way through, then the standard doesn't exist anymore, and he can't stand on the standard.
But it's denying justice's job to decide what's in the Constitution, to decide how to interpret the Constitution.
Well,
that is their job.
Okay, so here's...
Now, we may not like the philosophy that they are following, but that is their job.
So here's where it gets interesting for me. Let's say that you have the Supreme Court justices, and they do, forget gay marriage for a second, which is more controversial, but they just suggest that the Constitution of the United States mandates something completely unfair.
How about Brown versus Bush versus Gore?
Right.
That's a better one.
Right. Okay. So
a lot of people didn't like that.
Right. Right. Exactly. Or they think any moral decision that people universally don't like. They suggest that everyone under the age of 5 has to be killed. Right. They mandate the Constitution of the United States mandates that everyone under the age of 5 has to be killed. What do? Do we arrest them? No, we probably just ignore their decision, right? We ignore their decision. And nullification has long been a part of American life. The truth is, Brown versus Board actually didn't do anything. Right? What actually did something was the Civil Rights Act of 64. Between 55 and 64, the schools stayed segregated, basically. Right?
That's right.
What really happened was that the Supreme Court, what people take the Supreme Court too seriously is the truth. The Supreme Court makes rulings, and then people routinely ignore those rulings, and nothing happens because of them ignoring those particular rulings. And so, you know, when people say the Supreme Court is sort of the supreme law of the land, it's, in this particular case, it's true, there's a supremacy clause, but somebody's going to have to fight back against the Supreme Court. And so I'm all in favor, let's put it this way, on a moral level, I'm all in favor of Kim Davis and civil disobedience. I hope that thousands of more people participate in this sort of civil disobedience, specifically to generate the sort of outrage that is necessary in order to change the law.
Or should they quit?
No,
would this be something...
I was split on this yesterday. I was thinking about this a lot yesterday. Would I have quit, or would I... So the question is, do I want to go to jail or not, right? If I don't want to go to jail, then I quit. And if I mean,
both are illegal and a financial, well, not both legal, but definitely both are personal and a financial sacrifice.
Right. But
it probably is also a fireable offense, is it not?
So she's an elected official, she can't be fired. Right. So really, what could have happened here? Right, so they could impeach her, theoretically, or they could just put her up for re-election. And that's sort of been the answer with regard to, for example, Kamala Harris, who didn't enforce the law. Right, Kamala Harris did exactly what this lady did, except in reverse. The Proposition 8, which she was required to defend in court, she refused to defend in court, and the Supreme Court of the United States stood by her, which is a violation of law. And nobody said boo about it. I mean, now she's going to run for Senate and she's going to win. So but that goes again to the fact that natural law, if you really believe in the United States, you believe that natural law is more important than law itself. I mean, that's the fundamental bedrock upon which the country is built. That doesn't mean that the law doesn't apply or that the law enforcement authorities don't have to do what the law enforcement authorities have to do. It does mean that the people of the United States should be driven more by natural law principles than they should by the law itself, which is why it was great that people marched in Selma, and which is why it's great, I think, if people today march in the streets, and I think it's terrific today if people like Kim Davis go to jail for their principles. I think that's a worthwhile